It's the happiest time of the year. Spooky season. As a certified spooky bitch, I couldn't not do a Halloween special. And I figured this would be the perfect time to do my first ever Pokemon solo run. Gourgeist is my favorite Pokemon ever, because I love grass types, I love ghost types, and it's a freaking jack-o'-lantern with pigtails. What's not to love? Well, the level up learn set, for one. I may love Little Pumpkin, but even I can acknowledge that competitively it's just not great. Still, Generation 6 is pretty notorious for being easy, even for a Pokemon game. So let's see if I can make my way through Kalos with only the objectively best ghost Pokemon ever created in my party. Standard solo rules apply, no items in battle, I can't use my HM Pokemon in battle, not even as pivots, no super training, and I'm replacing Chespin due to the shared grass typing. This ensures that Kalem will have Delphox for the fire type advantage, but also because it's a spooky witch and everyone needs a Halloween Pokemon. Looking at my randomly generated Gourgeist, I have plus defense minus special attack as my nature, which is actually really good. Gourgeist is supposed to be a bulky physical attacker, so yeah, I don't miss the special attack and I like the extra bulk. I also have the ability Pickup, which could help reduce grinding if I pick up some rare candies, but honestly, neither Pickup nor Frisk do much for me. I'm pretty sure there is not a single enemy Pokemon who holds an item other than the two Megas you face. My early game moveset is pretty lackluster. Scary Face and Trick are just dead weight. Confuse Ray, however, is actually really nice to have this early. And Astonish, it's not that much weaker than the other level 5 moves that most Pokemon get. My first challenge, however, or challenge might be an exaggeration, my first frustration is Youngster Austin. You see, like most early game trainers, Youngster Austin has a weak normal type, and if you take a look at my level up learn set, I don't get a way to hit normal types until level 16. This means that my only way to damage this level 5 Zigzagoon is through Confuse Ray. It's not dangerous, because we have an immunity to normal moves and it does not have any way of hitting us, but it is tedious. And while Y version doesn't have that many mandatory trainers, I do want to fight some optionals in order to avoid grinding on wild Pokemon. Now, after this battle, Jack learns his signature move, Trick or Treat, which adds the ghost type to the opponent, which allows Astonish to hit for super effective, but it doesn't replace the normal type. So, unfortunately, Confuse Ray is still going to be our only way to hit normal type Pokemon for the foreseeable future. Before the first gym, I change out of my default outfit into a more seasonally appropriate one. Then I fight another Zigzagoon and get the coolest item of all time in Pokemon, the roller skates. Honestly, if Scarlet and Violet added roller skates, it would instantly be a 10 out of 10 for me. I have no idea why Game Freak ditched these after Kalos, but it is the only reason that Pokemon is universally referred to as a low-quality franchise in the modern era. Okay, time to tackle my real-life entomophobia, aka fear of bugs, and go outspook the little creepy crawlies. Lucky for me, there's no bug normal types, so the Trick or Treat and Astonish combo should take care of them all without issue. Surskit is easy enough, going down to a single super effective Astonish. Vivillon is another story, however. She sets up with 2 Hardens, while I set up with Confuse Ray and Trick or Treat. I get some pretty incredible confusion luck. However, Infestation puts me on an extremely harsh timer. Jack tries his best to handle the situation. However, Viola uses a potion last minute and denies me my rightfully earned victory. That stings! For some reason on the second attempt, Vivillon only uses Harden a single time, which makes a world of difference. I outpace the infestation damage with my super effective Astonishes and get the kill with a tiny sliver remaining. Viola then reveals a shortcut behind her that for some reason only opens after you defeat her, This is a pet peeve of mine because I hate running backwards through the gym to heal during Nuzlocke. On Route 4, Dexio becomes my new favorite NPC by gifting me the Return TM, meaning we can finally hit normal types. After beating up the Professor, I pick the best Generation 1 starter, who I will be using exclusively for HMs, and name him O, for a naming theme that will become extremely obvious later. There's not much going on in the upcoming section, but I do want to highlight a couple of instances of AI brilliance, such as Tyranno just spamming Sword Stance in order to set up while I kill him slowly, or this random trainer's Gulpin, which used Yawn turn 1 and then Poison Gas on turn 2, therefore overwriting the Yawn. Geniuses. Okay, so next up, I use Pickup to steal a Citrus Berry from Snorlax. In case you weren't aware, in later generations, Pickup actually has a function in battle. When the opposing Pokemon uses an item, you just get a copy of that item, if you're not holding one already. Okay, so believe it or not, but the next actually challenging portion of the game is my first encounter with Team Flare. Normally, the evil teams in Pokemon are kind of pushovers, but considering that Team Flare specializes in Dark, Fire, and Poison types kind of equally, my Ghost Grass typing is a pretty big detriment. This first encounter with them isn't too bad. I can spam Confuse Ray and Leech Seed and the Trick or Treat Astonish combo to take care of almost everything I run up against, but it's important to keep in mind that the Houndour, Golbat, Gulpin core is going to be, hounding me, for lack of a better term, throughout the playthrough, anytime that the Team Flare story picks up. I'm gonna skip ahead to Grant instead of narrating a bunch of boring trainer battles that I used both to grind experience and because I'm very bad at dodging spinners. Amara is up first, and I've given Jack Snorlax's Citrus Berry because I'm scared of the Refrigerate-powered takedown. Amara, however, goes for Thunder Wave, which is actually worse. I just don't realize it yet. This means that both Amara and Tyrant can outspeed Jack. So even with the health recovery and the 4x effective Rock Smash taking down Amara after only one hit, I am now really vulnerable. Strong Jaw powering up Bite deals a lot of damage to me and flinches me out of getting a Leech Seed off, but let's be honest, even with recovery, I don't think that was a winnable fight. So I decided to try switching out the Citrus Berry for a Cherry Berry. This works remarkably well. Amara still goes for Thunder Wave turn 1, but it accomplishes nothing and means that Amara is going to get one-shot by Rock Smash because its defense has been lowered on the first turn. This means I have full health going into Tyrant and, more importantly, full speed. I have to decide whether to replace Rock Smash with Bullet Seed, and I decide to go for it. Even though Bullet Seed hits Tyrant for neutral because of Dragon's resistance, I think that it's better to have the long-term move than the short-term one that is only useful for this battle, especially since my strategy now relies on taking advantage of the AI's obsession with speed control. Tyrant could easily knock me out with a couple of bites, however it goes for Rock Tomb on the first two turns because it wants to outspeed me. By the time it does, I'm not at low enough health for Bite to kill me, and it's at low enough health for Bullet Seed to kill it. So there goes Grant. I fucking love the AI's obsession with speed control, and it's going to come up several times throughout this playthrough, leading to some hilariously stupid results. Out of the frying pan and into the fire team, because now it's time to fight the exact same grunt that we fought at the beginning of the Fossil Cave. I'm pretty sure this is supposed to be the same grunt, at least. He introduces himself as if we've defeated him before, and he has the same Pokemon, a Houndour and a Zubat. Is this someone from the anime or something? Like the equivalent of Jesse and James in Yellow version? He shows up a couple of times throughout the campaign and frequently references that we've kicked his butt before, but doesn't have a name. Do I just, not get the reference? Let me know if you know what this is supposed to represent, because it's confused me for a while. I've played these games quite a few times, and yeah, it just kind of throws me off that there is a nameless grunt who you fight multiple times and is explicitly the same nameless grunt. Up next is a battle with Corinna. However, this is exceedingly trivial because despite the fact that you fight her after an area where there are wild ghost Pokemon, she does not have any attacks that can hit a ghost-type Pokemon. This is such a fun and interesting challenge for a boss battle. I almost didn't comment on it, but this happens so many times, specifically with Corinna, that I felt the need to. Seriously, directly after you fight her, you fight a Machoke that knows Foresight, which isn't the hardest thing in the world, but at the very least means that a ghost immunity doesn't just give you a free win. Next up is my personal favorite area in the game, Reflection Cave. I think it's just beautiful, and I really like that certain trainers can see you through the mirrors. There's also a lot of tough optional trainers here, so I take the opportunity to get a little bit more experience on Jack. I do accidentally get a couple of levels on O because it got dragged out by a whirlwind, but ultimately I don't think that's worth resetting over, and I hadn't saved for a while, so I kind of just didn't want to. You'll excuse me that he's level 13 instead of 10 now. Up next is the first major roadblock in our campaign, the initial Calum fight. This is actually pretty late for a first rival fight, but X and Y's pacing is all over the place. There's a giant empty stretch in the early game, and then you just sort of rapid-fire gym badges until Gym 6, at which point Team Flare takes center stage and slows things down to a crawl after both Gym 6 and Gym 7. Anyway, Meowstic is pretty trivial. Shadow Sneak hits for super effective, so Absol comes out next. I get pretty lucky, in fact, absurdly lucky. I get 2 critical hits on the same Bullet Seed, so Absol goes down in 1 round, bringing out Braxian? Brixian? I'm not sure how you pronounce that. I'm actually pretty scared of Braxian because even though it only knows Fire Spin, it has really high special attack. It chooses to go for Psybeam instead, as I go for a Confuse Ray. And then I get a little bit of chip with Shadow Sneak, but it is not that much. Citrus Berry heals me up, but I am still on a pretty tight timer thanks to Fire Spin. I debate for a while and decide that it's time to confuse it again since it snapped out earlier. And thankfully, I get pretty good confusion luck, as the first turn it hits itself, second turn I hit it with Shadow Sneak, and it finishes itself off. I have no delusions about the fact that I got absurdly lucky in that fight, and I am going to have to come up with a better strategy for the next time I fight him. Corinna is once again just a complete pushover. The only Pokemon on her team who knows any attacks that can hit ghost types is Machoke, and that attack is Rock Tomb, which, if you recall, Machoke only uses as long as you are faster than it. Once it outspeeds Jack, it's just gonna refuse to use Rock Tomb, even though it's the only attack on her team that can hit a ghost type. Seriously, this fucking trainer, like, put some coverage moves on your goddamn Pokemon. I get a Lapras, which I use for surf purposes, and now I have a fully complete and Halloween-themed team. Okay, it's time for another Calum battle already. Like I said, weird pacing. We're going rapid-fire rival battles. Meowstic is just about as unimpactful as last time. I have Shadow Ball this time, which it's worth noting uses my weaker special attack instead of my stronger physical attack. But I also have leftovers, which means that I can tank much better than previously. Absol comes out next, and unfortunately, I'm not going to be able to rely on my insane Bullet Seed luck that I got last time. I fire it off and get him down to about half health, and then a bite brings me down to about 2/3. Bullet Seed, once again, is going to knock him out, so it's not as bad as it could have been, but this does mean that I'm going into Braxian less healthy than I'd like to be. 78 HP, not ideal. I decide that it worked well last time. Let's hope for Confuse Ray luck, because this time Braxian is going to hit even harder. However, Braixen breaks through confusion, hits me with Fire Spin, puts me on an extremely tight timer. So I decide to slow that down with Leech Seed. Braixen then snaps out of confusion and Psybeams me down to almost dead. In fact, if it weren't for the combination of Leftovers and Leech Seed, the residual Fire Spin damage probably would have finished me off. I go for Confuse Ray again because I'm really hoping for good confusion luck, but I am not getting it. Thankfully, Braixen misses Fire Spin, but it hasn't hit itself in confusion even once. At this point, I decide it's just time to go on the offensive, so I fire off a Shadow Ball and bring it down to half HP. Psybeam brings me down to 3, but once again, the Leech Seed and Leftovers healing brings me just above where Fire Spin is going to kill me. Shadow Ball finishes Braixen off, and I think that would have been a lot easier if I hadn't wasted time with Confuse Ray. Hindsight's 20/20, I guess. Ramos is another really weird fight. Because he's a Grass-type trainer, his stab moves are going to be resisted by Jack. However, he opens with Jumpluff, who has Acrobatics that hits really frickin' hard. Thankfully, Shadow Ball gets the special defense drop because I'm not sure if I would have been able to survive a second Acrobatics. When Jumpluff goes down, out comes Weeping Bell. For some reason, he has a Weeping Bell instead of Victory Bell, which feels like another instance of XY's gym leaders just being the absolute worst. But Weeping Bell goes down pretty easily, and at this point, the fight is practically over, or at least so I think. Go-Go cannot out-damage Leftovers, so even though it has Sap Zephyr, meaning that I can't set up a Leech Seed, this fight is in the bag. Except for Go-Go resists Shadow, or doesn't resist Shadow Ball, but doesn't take that much damage from Shadow Ball. When combined with the Hyper Potions from Ramos, this means that I'm going to run out of PP. Since Shadow Ball is the only move that I can use to damage Go-Go thanks to its Grass immunity, I'm going to have to rely on Confuse Ray damage to finish it off. However, I could run out of Confuse Ray PP, so in order to save Confuse Ray PP, I have to start using Bullet Seed, which is going to proc Sap Zipper and increase Go-Goat's attack, potentially causing it to out-damage Leftovers and actually pose a threat to me. However, Ramos is XYAI, so he is obsessed with speed control, and he sees that Bulldoze has the added effect of dropping Pokemon speed and refuses to use it. This means that I'm still in no danger despite the extremely bizarre circumstances that brought me to this strange stall war. This feels like something out of Route 1 where I couldn't hit any of the normal type Zigzagoons, so I had to rely on Confuse Ray. But instead I'm doing it in the 4th gym and I'm boosting his attack to +6. But if you take a look, +6 Grass Knot did absolutely nothing to me. It's time to fight that same Grunt again, and while the fight itself isn't especially noteworthy, he's just got an evolved version of his previous 2 Pokemon, I wanted to linger on it because I have no idea what this guy's deal is. Like, it kind of makes me think of Cobalion or N, who are kind of a hybrid between rivals and evil team members in that you fight them multiple times, but they are associated with the evil team. But he's just a random grunt. He has the Houndour and Zubat that he eventually evolves into their adult forms over the course of you battling him, so that fits into a rival archetype, but I don't understand what they were going for. Like, it really feels like I'm missing something because I don't watch the anime. I don't know. This guy's weird. Team Flare's weird. X and Y's writing is weird. Hot take of the century. It's also worth noting that because Confuse Ray let me down so much, I ended up replacing it with Pain Split. Oh, and I wiped this guy in my first attempt at him. So, you know, there's that. No need to linger on that embarrassment, however. Jack is over-leveled to the point where even a resisted Bullet Seed is going to be 2 or 3-shotting most of these Pokemon, and the ones that don't have fire typing are going to be getting hit by neutral Bullet Seeds, so it's pretty easy to take care of them. Combine that with the fact that Shadow Ball, despite using my weaker special attack, is going to hit on special defenses, means that this just becomes a time tax rather than an actual exercise in difficulty. Leech Seed also helps out for the few Pokemon who are difficult to take down with pure power on their own. Let's move on to gym number 5, alright? Let's not focus on the fact that I died to a fucking random Flare Glunt who I overleveled. Also the fact that I can't pronounce grunt, apparently. So Gym 5 is pretty commonly regarded as the hardest gym in Kalos, and I agree. Clemont uses electric types, which is a fairly strong type, at least in the single-player story mode, and Emolga has an immunity to ground, which means you don't get the one weakness that electric has if you go in blind. Unfortunately for him, Jack is pretty overleveled, so I just spam Shadow Balls on his first 2 Pokemon and then Bullet Seed on the Heliolisk because of its normal type giving it immunity. I do want to point out that Magneton is for some reason unevolved, which is really bizarre to me. It's on the same line as Ramos and his Weeping Bell, but it feels even more egregious because we just went through the desert, and leveling up Magneton in the desert is how you make it turn into Magnezone. So it just feels really, really weird for it not to be fully evolved. Kalos gym leaders are generally pretty disappointing, and it's for more reasons than just them only having 3 Pokemon. It's starting to look like the only consistently difficult of this playthrough is going to be the rival fights with Kalim. While his most dangerous team member is definitely Delphox due to the insane special attack and the fact that it can hit me for super effective damage, his whole team is pretty difficult for Gourgeist to take down, with the exception of Meowstic, of course. Unfortunately, I am unable to one-shot Meowstic with Shadow Ball, which means it gets up a light screen, and since I'm using a special attack, that is a huge problem. I have to use Shadow Ball on Delphox because it's super effective, whereas Bullet Seed is not very effective. Unfortunately, I'm not even close to getting the one-shot. I get a special defense drop, but it's pretty clear that even with that drop, I won't be two-shotting, and while Delphox goes for a very weak Psybeam initially, Mystical Fire hits super hard. It's pretty clear I'm not winning this fight under this strategy. However, I have access to the Expert Belt nearby, so let's try that out, see if maybe that'll push us over the edge in order to one-shot Meowstic and avoid having the screens. Because Expert Belt is going to boost all super effective moves, I decided to replace Bullet Seed with Rock Smash. It's just more consistent. I lose out on Stab, but I do get super effective damage against Absol, and I also know my damage output as opposed to rolling some dice. I one-shot Meowstic with Shadow Ball, and then another Shadow Ball brings Delphox down to about a third HP. Even though Mystical Fire gets the special attack drop, I am able to successfully two-shot this Delphox, but I'm going into Absol pretty weak, and I'm not confident that I'll be able to one-shot it, which means I need to survive a bite. I debate for a little bit and then decide that it's best to play safe and Pain Split. Absol predictably goes for the super effective bite, and I hang on with just 12 HP this time, but Pain Split's not going to save me, so I go for Rock Smash and end up knocking out the evil doggo. Like I said, Kalim's team is pretty well equipped to deal with a Ghost Grass type, so I'm happy with our victory. After dealing with the world's lamest haunted house, it's time to fight our 6th gym leader, Valerie. Despite being the fairy-type gym leader and the generation that introduced fairy types, she really doesn't give a good show for the most overpowered type in the game. Mawile and Mr. Mime are both just kind of do-nothing Pokemon. I guess Mr. Mime would potentially be more of a threat if I didn't have super effective Shadow Ball against him, but even with the screen setup, it's just, he's kind of nothing. I also love Sylveon as a Pokemon in general. I feel like it is the quintessential, this is what the fairy type is, and I'm glad they introduced it to show off the fairy type. Plus, you know, it's the trans ribbon Pokemon. I can't not like it. But Valerie's Sylveon is a disappointment to Sylveons everywhere. Trans rights are human rights, but this Sylveon is doing everything wrong. That's Gym Badge 6. Not much to talk about. Next on the agenda is some Team Flare nonsense, but it's easy, so let's skip it. Up next, we have even more Team Flare nonsense, but this one's actually pretty difficult. Mabel has a Houndoom that knows Foul Play, and since Foul Play uses my own attack and hits me for super effective, it's going to deal a lot of damage. My current plan is to use Leech Seed, Protect Leftovers Stalling to try to wear it down. But Houndoom absolutely threw by using Embargo on turn 1 instead of Foul Play, so now I just get to fire off Seed Bomb unpunished over and over and over until it dies. That could have been difficult, but it wasn't. What's definitely going to actually be difficult, however, is fighting Rival Calum in the Hail. I can't equip the Expert Belt because I need Leftovers to counteract Hail Chip. However, I don't think the Expert Belt would make me one-shot Meowstic anyway. My special attack is just not that great, especially with a minus nature. I two-shot it and take a tiny bit of chip from Disarming Voice, but now the real threat comes out. Delphox is going to be scary, so I decided to set up Leech Seed to survive a little bit longer, and oh, I can't even survive a single Flamethrower from full health. It's grinding time. At level 57, I gain access to Phantom Force, which is a physical attack. I also give Jack the Expert Belt in order to further boost this against Meowstic and Delphox. This means I'm going to be taking some residual damage from Hail throughout the fight, so it puts me on a bit of a timer, but I'm fairly certain we can manage. Meowstic obviously goes down to a single Phantom Force, and Delphox doesn't fare much better. I'm not sure if the Hail Chip was necessary, but it is a welcome part of this being a 2-turn move. Absol comes out next, and it knows Night Slash, and I'm fairly certain this one has Super Luck, so critical hits are fairly likely and very threatening. I set up Leech Seed and managed to hang on from a crit by the skin of my teeth, then decide to Protect Stall out a little bit. Absol's going to be taking chip from both the Seeds and the Hail, but I don't want to risk the double protect, so I go for Seed Bomb in order to knock out the evil doggo. This brings out Calum's final Pokemon, Jolteon. Jolteon is pretty terrifying, but I can survive a single turn of Hail Chip, so I go for Phantom Force, and even though it's not super effective, it knocks out the electric evolution. Olympia is the gym leader that I am least scared of in this run. Because Ghost hits Psychic for super effective, the Expert Belt is going to be very useful here. Sigilith, however, throws a wrench in my plans by setting up Reflect before it dies to a crit. This means that I can't one-shot Meowstic as I planned to, and Meowstic is going to start setting up Calm Minds, which could be a problem if it weren't for the fact that I knocked it into healing range. Knowing that Olympia would go for a Hyper Potion, I go for a Seed Bomb, and then another Seed Bomb in order to waste Reflect turns. The third Seed Bomb kills Meowstic and brings out Slowking. I go for a Phantom Force, which causes Reflect to wear off, meaning that I can one-shot with an Expert Belt-powered Phantom Force, finishing up the 7th gym and kicking off the Team Flare plot. The Team Flare plot presents a kind of bizarre situation. There's more than 4 moves I want, and not all of them are TM moves. If I want to be able to reteach myself Seed Bomb after I'm done using things such as Toxic, I'm going to have to go fishing for about 1 billion Love Discs, just as insurance for the Move Reminder, who requires Heart Scales. With my fishing expedition out of the way, I decide to get around to that pesky business of trying to save the world. Lysander's team is weirdly tailored to make Gourgeist especially have a hard time. Mindfu knows Acrobatics, although that's not a huge deal because we do outspeed. But next up is Pyroar. Because of its normal typing, it's actually immune to Phantom Force, so my current plan is to try to stall out using Leech Seed, Protect, and Toxic. Unfortunately, however, it also knows Fire Blast and Dark Pulse. Fire Blast deals a lot of super effective damage, and Dark Pulse, while dealing less damage, doesn't have the advantage of possibly missing that Fire Blast has. This looks like a losing battle, so it's time to try a different strategy. Since stalling out with Leftovers isn't going to be successful, I'm going to try going all-out offensive. This means spending way too much money to purchase the notoriously inaccurate TM Focus Blast, which Jack can learn for some reason. Mindfu once again goes down to Phantom Force, and Pyro comes out. I roll the dice and successfully kill with a single expert belt powered Focus Blast. I did test, and Focus Blast will not kill on its own. This means that I don't get leftovers recovery for the Foul Play Markro, and instead have to rely only on the recovery I get from Leech Seed. Still, a Protect Stall on this thing might give me enough chip that I can finish it off with Phantom Force. It's obviously going to resist thanks to its Dark typing, but Focus Blast would only be neutral, plus it uses my special attack, plus it might miss because, 70 accuracy is actually 0. Gyarados intimidates me, which means that Phantom Force is going to hit for even less. Outrage hits pretty hard, but I've got Leech Seed Recovery Engine going, so I try Protect Stalling for a little bit, get some more chip off, and then let's go for Phantom Force. Phantom Force being a 2-turn move is advantageous here because it means that Gyarados takes additional chip from Lich Seed, and I recover even more. I can't finish it off because, again, Intimidate lowered my physical attack, but I'm pretty thankful that Gyarados came out last because this means that I had full physical attack in order to finish off the Markro. Stalling out Gyarados is easy peasy, and let's move on to the rest of the hideout. Except for just kidding, because I'm going to skip that part because it's boring. In the Lysander rematch, his Pokemon are now evolved into Mineshaw and Honchkrow. However, the strategies to take them down remain the same, so I'm showing the footage for the sake of transparency, but I'm not going to narrate over it because nothing has changed since last time. Focus Blast is still inaccurate, so that requires me to do a couple of resets, but yeah, easy peasy. Let's move on to the main event. Yveltal, the legendary bird that is responsible for an extinction level event simply by going to sleep. The Pokedex claims that it's going to once again call extinction if it ever cocoons up again. This is an appropriate steed for a spooky bitch. So I'm going to go ahead and chuck my Master Ball at this legend and turn it into my Fly Pokemon. This is the reason that I chose Y, by the way. I think it's appropriately Halloween flavored to ride the Herald of All Death. Okay, so Lysander has Mega Evolved and challenges me to a battle once again with very minimal changes to his team from the last two. It's really weird that you fight him 3 times in a row, just back to back to back, and at no other point in the story. Even Giovanni, you fight at separate intervals far away from each other. So, they'd figured this out, but because they wanted to make the world's lamest twist ever, the last 2 Lysander fights are just kind of a letdown. I know a lot of people skip the first 2, but because the first one is where I figured out my strategy, I felt like I needed to include it, which makes this one just anticlimactic. I'm speeding through because I used the same strat as I did before. The only difference is, now that Gyarados has the Dark type, I'm tempted to try out Focus Blast. However, as you may be aware, Focus Blast is commonly referred to as Focus Mist within the community, or rather Focus Miss within the community. And that's exactly what it does. Miss, 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 miss. We get some pretty close calls because, I miss a bunch and my health goes down super low. But by Phantom Forcing in order to dodge, I safely Leech Seed stalled the Gyarados to death. So, on the topic of things that are super anticlimactic, I was incredibly scared of what I refer to as Rival Bridge, because in my experience Nuzlocking X and Y, I end up losing Pokemon to this gauntlet pretty much every time I attempt it. However, Jack is super overleveled. One of the things about a solo challenge, even in later generations, is your Pokemon get a bunch of experience funneled into them, and so suddenly you just stomp everything regardless of type matchups or how strong the Pokemon is. Case in point, I can tank an Acrobatics from this Talonflame despite the fact that it is super effective and a Talonflame. This allows me to Leech Seed stall, and using Phantom Force and Protect and Leech Seed is basically the solution to every single Pokemon. Shauna had a Sap Sipper Goodra, but I didn't even feel the need to talk about it because, again, just everything goes down to Phantom Force. Everything goes down to the fact that Jack is just a giant ball of stats. Yeah, I guess I knew going in I would be overpowered because as a kid, I had gone through all of Pokemon Blue with just Venusaur and got to whatever ridiculous level it was and stomped the Elite Four over and over and over because that's the entirety of the Blue version post-game. However, I didn't think I would be this overpowered. I thought that there were anti-solo measures in place, and with Gourgeist in particular not being a super strong Pokemon, unlike most of the starters, I anticipated difficulty, and I get difficulty, it's just not at the moments I thought it would be. Rival Bridge down. If ever there were a challenge where Wulfric was not a hilarious pushover of an 8th gym leader, it would be this one, because I'm soloing with a grass type. However, even under this circumstance, he manages to be terrible. I open with Flame Charge, which is 4x effective against Abomasnow, and brings him down low enough that he wastes his Hyper Potions. This is actually intentional, however. I don't want to get the one-shot because I want him to be out of items by the time Avalugg comes out. This also conveniently stalls out turns of Hail. Because I'm using leftovers, I'm not taking Hail Chip, but I'm also not recovering with my leftovers, and I would like to do that when facing Avalugg. Once Abomasnow goes down, I resort to Phantom Force because a 2x effective Flame Charge is going to deal less damage than a neutral Phantom Force. Avalugg is next, and Avalugg actually has very high physical defense. So I protect to get some healing and then throw down Leech Seed because the plan is to Leech Seed stall. Unfortunately, Avalanche deals a ton of damage, but I'm fairly certain that I can stall it out by alternating between Protect and Phantom Force. Since Phantom Force gives me a free turn of invulnerability, the fact that it deals very little damage to Avalugg isn't of much consequence. The way that I'm killing him is through Leech Seed Chip. Garrowball is a little bit of a threat. If he set up curses, he could make himself significantly slower than me and also boost his attack. He's one-shot Tyranitar for me in Nuzlocke before, but not this time. Avalugg goes down, and Wulfric is once again a hilarious joke. In the interest of time, I'm not going to go over much that happens on Victory Road. However, I do want to touch on Caitlyn. He has been a consistent thorn in our side, and so the fact that I am still fairly over-leveled means that I get to do the extremely satisfying thing and just one-shot all of the Pokemon that have been a pain in my ass throughout this run. That's right, Meowstic goes down to a one-shot, Delphox goes down to a one-shot, and Absol goes down to a one-shot Focus Blast, and that's without the Expert Belt. I still have leftovers on because I got lazy and didn't switch the items up in Victory Road. Altaria, I don't have a way of one-shotting, so I decide to set up Leech Seed and do the classic Leech Seed Phantom Force stall tactics. I also have leftovers, so, you know, I get a little bit of recovery, but Dragon Pulse isn't dealing enough damage to be much of a threat anyway. Up last is Jolteon, and this time I'm not scared of it because I'm at full health and I resist Discharge. So have fun getting seeded, you dumb bitch. Phantom Force, Leech Seed, etc., etc. Like, let's just put him out of his misery. Calum, you were a worthy rival up until the end, at which point you were no longer worthy of being my rival. But it's been fun. Okay, now it's time for the League, and I'm going to go ahead and face Seabold first. On its face, this is because I want to get some extra experience before fighting the other 3 more difficult League members, but I also anticipate Seabold being the only one who Seed Bomb will be useful for, so if I defeat him first, I get much more flexibility with TM moves for my Learn set. I'm going to knock out Clawitzer with a single Seed Bomb, which unfortunately means Gyarados is coming out next. Gyarados' Intimidate cuts my attack, and it knows Dragon Dance and Ice Fang, which are pretty scary. Of course I'm going to go for the Leech Seed stall while it Dragon Dances, and now it outspeeds me. I can hit it with a neutral Seed Bomb, however, Ice Fang crits me and brings me down lower than half. I am pretty terrified of this right now. I go for a Protect because I'm stalling Leech Seed turns, and then go for a Phantom Force, hoping beyond hope that I can survive a Ice Fang. I survive, but unfortunately the Leech Seed chip brings it down to the point where Seabold is going to heal with Hyper Potion. This is not great. I get a crit, so I have another healing turn to immediately fire off a Phantom Force on, thinking I will dodge an Ice Fang, but unfortunately this means that Gyarados just sets up another Dragon Dance. I hit him with Phantom Force, but thanks to not critting, I only bring him down to about half, and a +2 attack Ice Fang is terrifying. I protect for a turn, and then pray that I can dodge the crit from this Ice Fang, which I do, but I flinch. Ugh. I can protect again, but a single turn of Leech Seed is not going to kill this Gyarados, so I have to do a Hail Mary and go for a second turn protect. And I get it. Gyarados, however, Dragon Dances like an idiot, and then gets Leech Seeded down. Bye-bye, I guess? I take back what I said about you being smarter than Lysander. Even though I've been intimidated, Seed Bomb is 4x effective against Barbarical, so GG easy, and Jack levels up. I choose not to teach Explosion, despite the fact that Explosion is my favorite move. Somehow I don't think it'll be useful in a solo challenge. Starmie hangs on, but sets up Light Screen for whatever reason, so that's Seabold. Let's move on. Okay, so next up is Wikstrom, and much like Seabold before him, Wikstrom isn't especially threatening. In fact, I would go as far as to say that Seabold is actually a more difficult trainer than Wikstrom when it comes to this challenge, at least. The only reason that I did Seabold first was because I need all 4 move slots for my strategy with Wikstrom. My strategy with Wikstrom, that is a stall battle, basically. I've got Will-O-Wisp for burns, and I have Leech Seed for Leech Seed recovery, chip, etc. Klefki is really a non-threat. Like, I've got Leech Seed going off, I've got Phantom Force dealing damage, and I end up using this opportunity to burn through Wikstrom's full restores. Again, Klefki isn't threatening me, I'm recovering with leftovers, I'm recovering with Leech Seed, and I'm buying time with Phantom Force. Flash Cannon is unfortunately going to lower my accuracy, which sucks because I'm relying on Leech Seed and Will-O-Wisp, both of which are 75% accurate moves, but it's kind of unavoidable. Klefki just defaults to Flash Cannon. I managed to end the fight while underground from Phantom Force, so I get a free chip off on Scizor, but Scizor retaliates with Night Slash, which is super effective, threatens critical hit, etc, etc. So I burn him. He's a physical attacker, the burn's going to make him less threatening and allow me to more easily stall out. Since Wikstrom doesn't have any full restores either, it means that any burns that I put on his team are permanent from here on out. Aegislash is next, and Aegislash could be scary were it not for the fact that he uses stance change to turn into an attacking stance after I've already disappeared. So I can deal damage to him with Phantom Force and just completely annihilate him. Aegislash is a very strong Pokemon though, so like, you know, it could have been scary if I hadn't gotten lucky with my 2-turn move. You know who isn't scary though? Probopass. Once again, it is a prolonged stall fest against this nose Pokemon, big metal nose mustache guy. I mean, he can deal a decent amount of damage with Power Gem, but it's just not going to be enough unless he scores a crit to get around to my Protect plus Phantom Force plus Leech Seed combo. I don't bother burning him because as a special attacker, he's not going to get hindered by the lack of physical attack, but I don't even have to be the one to land the final blow. My Leech Seed does that. Up next is Drasna. The next 2 Elite Four members are both much harder than the first 2 were. Drasna just comes down to RNG. I have to not get poisoned by Dragalge's Sludge Bomb or its Poison Point. I Leech Seed it for a little bit of extra chip, and then Protect and Phantom Force. These combined are enough for me to get the kill, but again, if I'm poisoned by either Sludge Bomb or Poison Point, I lose. Noivern outspeeds, but thankfully misses me with Air Slash. That's only a 5% chance to happen, and I need it to happen. I managed to kill it with 2 separate Phantom Forces, but just 1 non-critical air slash brings me super low. Alteria's not very threatening though, so I can explain what else could have gone wrong. Air slash had the chance to flinch, which I lose if I get flinched. And if Noivern got a critical hit, then I lose as well. Also worth noting that Leech Seed on the Dragalge was only a 75% chance to happen, and if that missed, I would lose because I would not be at high enough HP for the Noivern. I basically needed to come in at full HP in order to survive that air slash. Altaria is going down because, again, stall's going to stall. Drasna is going to use a healing item to sort of prolong this stall fest, but while she can cure Burn with full restore, she has no way of curing Leech Seed. It is a little bit dangerous because, as you can see from the footage, Altaria puts me to sleep at one point. Sing is only 55% accurate, and even then, I would have to stay asleep for a pretty long time. Basically, I'd have to be asleep going into Drudagon for it to matter. But, you know, the fight isn't over just because I took care of the 2 dangerous Pokemon. Altaria putting me to sleep could very well result in the most frustrating loss of all. Thankfully it doesn't. I wake up and am able to protect myself, burn Altaria, etc, etc. Just bring it down. When Drudagon comes out, I'm gonna be awake and I'm gonna take care of it. Easy peasy lemon squeezy. Drasna's difficulty really only lies in the first 2 Pokemon. It's a very front-loaded fight. Drudagon just spams Dragon Tail, which does almost nothing to me. Jack is very physically bulky, and I'm so much higher than Drudagon. Like, I'm 13 levels above it. I can stall it out with Leech Seeds and Burns and Leech Seeds and Burns, but the fight is over. We're done here. Do I need to show you the rest of the fight for you to believe me? I mean, I will, just so you can see. But, like, we're done here. We finished up. Bye-bye. Go to sleep, Mr. Dragon. Go to sleep. Bye-bye. Malva is the 4th and final member I take on, and because I have a minus special attack nature, I actually have to chug all of my rare candies, I have 4 of them, before going into this fight. It does mean that I can knock out Pyroar with an Expert Belt boosted Focus Blast, but I would have been short at an earlier level, even with the Expert Belt. Talonflame is next, and I decide to Leech Seed it. It wears itself down with Brave Bird, which deals a fuck ton of damage, but also does some recoil. From here, it's a game of stalling out with a combination of Protect and Phantom Force, and relying on some amount of recoil damage. Talonflame is always going to go for either Flare Blitz or Brave Bird, so it's a fairly reliable win. Chandelure is more bulky than you would expect, however, Expert Belt and Phantom Force helps take it down, and I don't get Flame Body proc, so I can go into Torkoal without the enormous timer that a burn would give me. That said, Flame Wheel still has the possibility of burning me, and Torkoal knows how to set up using Curse, so the fight's not fully over. Malva also has access to both of her full restores, so it gets dragged out. I decide to try speeding things up with a couple of Focus Blasts. It's inaccurate and not stab, but it also hits on special, so, you know, I get around the curse that way. GG, easy. Go back to Team Flare. There's only one trainer left in the entire region of Kalos who I haven't defeated yet, and that is the champion Diantha. She's often thought of, I think rightly, as the weakest champion, but as has been a theme for this run, her team is actually set up to be kind of threatening to Jack. I guess Gourgeist just is not meant to take on Kalos as a solo. Halucha is first, and he sets up a sword dance while we go for Phantom Force. Thankfully, we take it out pretty easily after a few attacks, which that's good because X-Scissor plus Swords Dance could cause us problems. That said, if you look at the amount of damage that he did with a +2 X-Scissor, I'm beginning to think we might be a little bit over-leveled. Getting poisoned by Poison Jab would be a problem for us if it happened, and in fact is the reason that I had to reset against Diantha once, but Doesn't happen, so we are able to take down Howlucha pretty easily, and we get to see our old nemesis, refrigerate-powered Aurorus. Fortunately, we have Focus Blast, so GG, easy, eat shit, Little Neck, Littlefoot, whatever the fuck. Land Before Time. Next comes Goodra, who I'm fairly certain has Sap Sipper, but we've gotten rid of our only grass move. Well, other than Leech Seed, I suppose. We're not doing a stall battle, though. We're just gonna go ahead and attack with Phantom Force. Twice does it, and there we go. Bye-bye, Pseudo-Legendary. Gourgeist is out next, and for the mirror match, we're going to go ahead and protect so that it uses Phantom Force and gets ahead of us. This way, its Phantom Force will miss and ours will hit. We had to protect for a turn just to get it out of sync. I could have used a Leech Seed, I suppose, but protect just seems better just in case it was going to do something weird. Tyrant is up next, and this is another one that it's threatening. It's got Crunch, it's got Strong Jaw. Like I said, so many trainers just have teams that are weirdly threatening to the Grass Ghost combination. That said, we're going to try to stall out using Leech Seed and Protect, and you know the strategy by now. Leech Seed plus Protect plus Phantom Force plus Leftovers. Like, easy GG. Well, I mean, not quite GG. Crunch is definitely dangerous. Tyrant is probably the most threatening Pokemon so far, since we can't just, like, easily take him out. I guess I could have gone for Focus Blast here, but I really didn't want to gamble on that 70% hit rate. And it's vaguely safe. Like, we're kind of at risk of getting crit multiple times, but the King of the Dinosaurs is still just going down. Prolonged extinction is still extinction. It's prolonged even further by the fact that Diantha has decided to use items. Scumbag trainer that she is. She's not abiding by the rule of just maintain your Pokemon's strength as the only measure. Regardless, you can see that eventually I lost my patience and started spamming Focus Blast trying to take care of this guy, but I keep missing, because Focus Blast is a terrible move. I've missed 3 of them in a row. I know it's technically 70% accurate, and you might say, like, oh, well, you hit a bunch of them earlier. I didn't show you all the attempts where I reset for missing. I do finally get off a Focus Blast, and it's what takes down Tyrant, whatever the fuck he's called, the big guy. So now it's Mega Gardevoir's turn. Phantom Force is super effective against the Psychic Fairy, however, so I don't see this as being a problem. GG, easy, and with that, the run is complete. I'm the champion, etc., etc. Diantha was easier than expected from looking at her team, if I'm being perfectly honest, but she's in that weird space where she has a team that is perfectly balanced, but also kind of sucks. Like, she's got a pseudo-legendary, she's got someone tanky, she's got the fossils, but it just doesn't add up to anything worthwhile. Regardless, happy Halloween to all the spooky girls and spooky guys and spooky NBs out there. I hope if you celebrate Halloween that you have a wonderful Halloween, and if you're in one of those terrible heathen countries that doesn't celebrate Halloween, I hope this brought a little bit of spooky joy into your heart as well. Oh, by the way, I lost to AZ, which is kind of hilarious, but I don't really count that as being something that causes the run to fail. Like, this is a successful run. I managed to score guys solo X and Y, and I had a great time doing so. It was more challenging than I expected, I'll be honest, but yeah, this has sort of solidified my love of Gourgeist. I got frustrated at times, but Gourgeist is still my favorite Pokemon. I just love the little jack-o'-lantern goofball. Happy Halloween, everyone. Thank you so much for tuning in. I will leave you to watch me get wiped by AZ.